Should Fergie, the Duchess of York, be cancelled for calling notorious paedophile Jeffrey Epstein her supreme friend?
She's lost her charitable associations. We're going to be speaking to the York's biographer Andrew Lownie to find out what the king should do about his errant brother and sister-in-law.
She has done a lot of good work for charity, particularly Teenage Cancer Trust, so it's sad to see those associations end. But the fact is, she is very greedy, she is very stupid, and she is very naive, and she's drawn into the ambit of these people, predators like Epstein, and she doesn't seem to see that this is a problem, and doesn't seem to listen to people who could advise her that these are not people to get involved in.
Tim, how do you solve a problem like the Duke and Duchess of York? Sarah Ferguson now in hot water after a lifetime of gaffes and sordid headlines, toe-sucking.
She's always been my favourite royal, can I just say that? She really has. Everyone has their own royal, and other people are mad for Diana or Charles. I've never seen it. For me, it's Ferg. She's my spirit animal.
And famously getting duped by the fake sheikh.
Yeah.
Trying to sell Prince Andrew for £500,000. And now it emerges that the grovelling apology that she made in 2011 for having received £15,000 from Jeffrey Epstein, who famously was a convicted paedophile and later died in prison and was good friends with her ex-husband, the Duke of York. Emails have emerged suggesting that after she publicly denounced him and said she abhorred paedophilia, she privately messaged him, we must get the wording right. She called the sex offender a steadfast, generous and supreme friend to me and my family.
But it is understood that she may have received threats, aggressive threats from Epstein, and been advised to tell him whatever was necessary to stop him from taking legal action against her. That's surely important. Her spokesman, James Henderson, told the Telegraph's Rob Mendick that Epstein threatened to destroy the Duchess and her family in what is described as a Hannibal Lecter-like call.
Well, let's bring Andrew Lownie into the conversation. Welcome back to the Daily Tea.
Lovely to be here.
Your book on the Yorks has been selling great guns. In fact, the episode that we did with you some weeks ago was very highly rated and much watched.
Well, it was very well presented.
Thank you so much. So they're a compelling couple, these two, aren't they? And I've cited some of their history. The question now is what should happen? Fergie's been effectively cancelled. We've got a number of charities who have all disassociated themselves from her, said they no longer want her to be their patron. So that's Julia's House, which is a children's hospice, the Natasha Allergy Research Foundation, the Children's Literacy Charity, the Teenage Cancer Trust. I mean, this was the Duchess's favourite, really. She'd been patron of there for 35 years. What more can you tell us about her relationship with Epstein and this 15 grand and the fallout?
Well, it's not 15 grand. I mean, my sources tell me it was more like £2 million. I mean, Epstein wouldn't have, bothered with small sums like that, and neither would she. I think also she maintained her contact with Epstein long after she claimed to have broken contact. I mean, here she's saying she's been forced by threats of defamation, though it's a pretty effusive response to that. But, I mean, I had a witness, a woman who used to walk her dog past Mark Epstein's flats. These were owned by Epstein and his brother. And she was still staying there in 2013. So this is many years after she claimed to have cut off all contact. So I can see why the charities feel that she's pretty toxic to them. And have sought to distance themselves. And I'm afraid it's just another example of what Sarah Ferguson says in public is very different to how she behaves in private.
What did Sarah Ferguson get out of her relationship with Epstein?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, according to Ghislaine Maxwell, it was Sarah who introduced Andrew to Epstein. But, I mean, she got, a nice place to stay in New York. She got her bills paid and debts. And I suspect there were useful contacts that she got in the way that Andrew got. And what he got, of course, was his proximity to the royal family, his, his status, his respectability. So you can understand why she didn't really want to change it. I think he continued to pay off some of her debts. She remained, for a woman who seemed to be very frightened of him, she was pretty friendly with him.
What's the truth about Fergie, though? Because as Tim says, I mean, she is quite a well-loved royal. I remember after Harry and Meghan's wedding, which she was invited to in 2018, she didn't go to William and Catherine's, and she's sort of been brought back into the royal fold. She was at Christmas at Sandringham in 2023, I think for the first time since the early 90s and the separation. So she's kind of everybody's sort of guilty secret, really, in a way. Guilty pleasure. Fergie, the woman that's erred. There's something human and relatable about her because she's made so many catastrophic mistakes. It's not like people's feelings towards Prince Andrew, who is sort of widely hated and dislikable and has a bad reputation for being pompous and arrogant. There's something quite lovable about this woman, but then in recent days, she's just been described as a venal grifter. Which is it, Andrew?
Well, I think a bit of both. I mean, so she is absolutely charming. I've met her. You can see why people like her. I think Sarah Vine described her as a human Labrador, but even Sarah Vine has changed her views. She was always, if you talk to her staff, very manipulative. She played off people against each other. She was, I think she played this rather kooky character, and people warmed to that. And particularly in the States, they warmed to the idea of someone who perhaps had fallen foul of the establishment, the palace establishment. She'd fought her way back. You've got to admire the way that she does pull her back from all her failures. And she made some money doing Weight Watchers. She has done a lot of good work for charity, particularly Teenage Cancer Trust. So it's sad to see those associations end. But the fact is, she is very greedy. She is very stupid, and she is very naive, and she's drawn into the ambit of these people, predators like Epstein, and she doesn't seem to see that this is a problem, and doesn't seem to listen to people who could advise her that these are not people to get involved in.
Well, I mean, James Henderson has been her representative for many years, and I know him well. I've met her on a number of occasions. I interviewed her for the Telegraph magazine a few years ago. She's very kooky. She wasn't initially happy about me being on the shoot because I was meant to do this kind of question and answer thing that was quite controlled and choreographed. Then I turned up, then she warmed up, had lunch together. She was very friendly. By the end of it, she was taking me to her car and giving me children's books that she was signing for my youngest, laughing at the fact that at the time I was driving around in a Volkswagen Up. She's very eccentric. She's from a very aristocratic family. She's made some very dubious life choices, particularly when it comes to her taste in men, which I think is appalling. Her taste in men is so bad.
Can I speak in defence of her? First of all, she's not the only person who's fallen foul of Jeffrey Epstein. A lot of cleverer and more upstanding members of society did so. Bill Clinton, for instance.
But he wasn't paying personal debt. No one else had personal debts being paid. And but we had Mandelson, of course.
On that point, it's expensive to be a royal, isn't it? Even if you're a peripheral royal. You do incur debts. You're expected to live a certain way. But you don't actually... She can't go and get a job in the typing pool or something. She sort of has to live this strange existence off other people because of the nature of the role. And because she's on the outside of the palace...
Disagree.
She can't... Not only does she have to do that, but she doesn't have the palace mafia to protect her.
But
when
think
this
of
sort
all
of
those
thing
people
happens.
outside, the Lady Sarah Chattos and the Lord Lindsays, who've got careers, who don't have to live as extravagantly as she has. I mean, one of the things I detail in Entitled is just the level of extravagance and waste. So she wanted a lifestyle beyond what she could afford, you're right, and then she got involved with people she felt could give it to her, and that was, of course, the problem with Andrew. But, I would say there are lots of members of the royal family, both working royals and non-working royals, who managed to live life slightly under the radar and just do their duty. And, it's the old trope of public duty and private pleasure. And Sarah Ferguson comes into private pleasure. As you say, she's our guilty pleasure because she's the naughty girl who kind of, we think, gets away with it.
Yes.
And she has until now.
But let's make a distinction here. The Duke of York was cancelled because he was accused of being complicit in some way in Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. He was accused by
accused of having slept with one of the victims.
Yes, Virginia Roberts, known as Giuffre. She passed away a few months ago, took her own life. Nothing was ever proven in a court of law, but the seriousness of that allegation, the subsequent multi-million-pound payoff, the lapse of judgment in maintaining a friendship with a convicted paedophile post-release from prison, in the same way as it has felled Peter Mandelson, was deemed to be sort of too much of an error of judgment to be forgiven. Let's be perfectly honest here. Yes, there is a huge amount of duplicity in what she said publicly and what she said privately to Epstein. But the Duchess of York is not a paedophile. I do beg the question, what's it got to do with her raising awareness of breast cancer or, in the case of one of the charities, allergies?
Well, I mean, the charities have to speak for themselves, but I can see that, it's not good if you want people to subscribe to your charity to have someone who, and particularly a children's charity, someone who doesn't seem to recognise, what Jeffrey Epstein was, and is staying with him years after you've claimed to have disassociated yourself, and to be writing so effusively to him. But this is a question of financial corruption. This is someone who's monetised her position and her status in the royal family in order to make money for herself. And I think that is one of the
Well, that's
the
a
big
strong word
questions.
to use, Andrew. She's not done anything criminal here.
Well,
Let's
it
be
depends what
careful
you mean by here.
You're saying corruption. Hang on a minute. She's not being investigated by police. The police aren't involved in this. Again, it's a massive lapse of judgment. My only point is the Teenage Cancer Trust, which she's been supporting for 35 years. OK, we can have a conversation about what's motivated her to do that and all the rest of it. They've now said, right, that's it. I suppose my general objection, and we've had a lot of this week already, people trying to cancel Sarah Smith at the BBC for describing Charlie Kirk as far right. Bridget Phillipson's trying to cancel Liz Truss for suggesting that Tommy Robinson isn't far right. We've now got huge efforts to cancel Fergie. What are these people meant to do? What are Fergie and Andrew now meant to do? Are they meant to just remain in a darkened room for the rest of their lives, never appear in public again, not go to any royal occasions even though they're family, and accept that, they've been placed into some kind of early retirement?
Well, I think people find it very strange that she should be going to official events and be sitting in the royal box at Wimbledon when she's been divorced 30 years. But, I mean, no one is saying they can't go to family events. I think the feeling is that public opinion is unhappy with them going to some of these public, what in effect are royal events.
Well, she went to the Duchess of Kent's funeral last week because she and her ex-husband knew Catherine Kent very well.
And there was footage which was embarrassing for Andrew of him apparently joking in the...
Well, he
Yeah,
behaves
I
inappropriately.
think a lot of people would feel that, given their profile, it might have been better to have slipped in the side door. I had friends in the service and who were slightly embarrassed to see them. They always want to be centre stage. Other members of the royal family slipped in quietly, sat at the back. They had to walk straight to the front. It had to be all about their status. So that's a separate thing. I mean, my book, does delineate a lot of very concerning issues about Sarah Ferguson. I think the most serious is the Selman Turk High Court case in 2022, when she had large sums of money being paid to her, which wouldn't explain. And I do think there needs to be a bit more transparency and accountability, because she does pass herself off as the Duchess of York. That's how she gets these endorsements and all her work. And she's sort of managed to do what Meghan has failed, which is to be half in and half out. So I think there are very legitimate questions. She's never answered any of the questions that have been put to her about any of these issues, not just the issues this week. And she talks, interestingly enough, about how Epstein has helped her family. Well, is that just her and Andrew, or is that actually the children as well? It would be very interesting to hear, what she said. She's come out, as she has in the past. You mentioned the 2010 News of the World sting, which she was selling access to Andrew. And she's come out. She always distances herself. That was a different person. I'll change now, and yet she never does change, I'm afraid. And I think it's a public thing. It's about optics, apart from anything else. And I think people are beginning, to feel that she's taking the mickey, basically.
Might I suggest that not only has she not changed, but she's always been the same. I felt with Peter Mandelson, when that was revealed, his relationship with Epstein, my first thought was, why did you hire this man in the first place to be the ambassador? You knew what he was like, and we knew he'd had some relationship with Epstein, and we also knew he'd had to leave government twice before. Likewise for Sarah, okay, we didn't know about this element of her relationship with Epstein, but we've known for a long time what she's like and what her character is. I remember as a child, it was the toes. That was what was stuck in my mind. Still lingers there like a nightmare. Why for 3 decades?
She was licking, not sucking.
She was licking, not sucking.
Please, honestly.
Licking, not sucking. But why for 3 decades have people come back to Sarah Ferguson and given her so many second, third and fourth chances?
Well, she's a great Becky Sharp. She's the Houdini of the royal family. She is able to manipulate herself back. Philip didn't want anything to do with her. She used the Queen as her protector, even though the Queen actually was not a great fan of hers, but felt sorry for the children.
Well, hang on. I'm just going to interject there. Prince Philip did once describe her as odd and pointless, and whenever that's the quote, isn't it, Andrew?
Yep.
And whenever the Queen wanted to invite Fergie to Balmoral for the children, she did admire her for being a good mum to those granddaughters, but by everyone's estimation, actually, Princess Beatrice and Eugenie are pretty well-adjusted young women, despite their parents' obvious foibles. Whenever she was invited to Balmoral, it would have to be during Cowes Week, because the Duke of Edinburgh did not want to be in Scotland at the same time as Fergie.
Right.
But I disagree slightly. I think that Queen Elizabeth II did have a bit of a fondness for her, actually. Otherwise, why would she have bothered?
Well, I think she was, she's very protective of Andrew. She felt that, she was pleased that Sarah had stuck by Andrew.
Yes.
And I think that got a lot of loyalty. I mean, they could exactly discuss, horses and dogs.
Yes.
They had the bond of the corgis. I mean,
And the military, Major Ron, her father, and all that.
Yeah. So, but Sarah was also very good at, she knew that her calling card was to be a member of the royal family. So she was constantly working away her passage back in there. And she's worked on Charles and Camilla more recently, which is why she's been taken back in. And so they decided it was better to keep, her close.
Well, to be fair, she did her book.
Well, she's done 3 books of memoirs, which
Yes.
she haven't really released anything.
And she's done a whole mea culpa on Oprah. I mean, she was the original.
that, yes.
She's the original Oprah Winfrey
That's great.
royal. I mean, Meghan, eat your heart out.
Well,
she
exactly.
did it first.
Meghan could
Yes.
learn a lot from her. But
Yes.
just because she's confessed something doesn't mean that she's changed her behaviour, as Tim says.
But what
And I
should the
think-
king do? I mean, there's talk of they should be stripped of their titles. They're never going to be stripped of titles that they were given upon marriage, which
Yeah.
she retained post-divorce. They're not going to be booted out of Royal Lodge Windsor because he signed quite a long lease and spent some money on it, regardless of what we think about peppercorn rents and all the rest of it. So what does the king do? It's Christmas. I've had the conversation this week with my own relatives. What are we doing for Christmas, Tim? Andrew, what are we doing for Christmas?
Who are we inviting?
Who are we inviting? What does the king do now?
But can I just say, don't pretend people don't exist. That's one of the things I hate about cancellation. And it happened, for instance, with David Starkey. All the
Yes.
titles taken away. Don't pretend he never got this
Yeah,
award.
don't pretend he wasn't an expert on the Tudors.
I
Well,
can't
David
stand the
Starkey
line.
earned his titles and rewards.
So did Ferg.
Well, I think
Married to Andrew for
marrying
what, 3
Andrew,
months?
marrying Andrew, and then he goes off with the Royal Navy. But the other Andrew Lownie, what should the king do?
Well, I agree. It's a difficult position, and he's caught between his sentimentality, his loyalty to his younger brother, and the wider picture of the optics and the future of the monarchy, the reputational damage she's doing. I mean, they had a police escort, for example, to the Duchess of Kent's wedding, which seems strange and presumably was agreed by Charles. But there's poor old Harry fighting for all sorts of things, and here's a slightly double standards.
Poor old Harry, Andrew Lownie, you're going soft. What are you?
Liz Truss
hang on a minute.
Get Secret Service detail. It does seem odd that
To
Harry
be,
doesn't.
if you're at a major royal event, you get enveloped into the whole security scene.
That's true.
why it's slightly disingenuous what Harry's arguing, because if he came here with Meghan and the children
Yes.
for a royal event,
Yes.
they'd get the police bodyguards.
That's true.
I mean, you're the expert, but I understand that some of the royals, literally do drive themselves to some
Yes.
events, very low-key events. But anyway, the point is, I think, unfortunately, the Yorks don't seem to be taking advice. The advice, as you say, would be to just move out of Royal Lodge, find somewhere, nice, but not so extravagant. I think the public sort of wants something to happen. I think Charles is in a difficult position because, as you say, there are very limited levers he can pull. And he certainly can't get them out of Royal Lodge. It's up to someone to persuade the two of them that this isn't good for the long-term future of the monarchy. You should have Prince William on here. Maybe he will give you an answer.
Maybe. Or maybe the king needs to make a Hannibal Lecter-style call and see if that moves the dial.
That might do the trick.
Andrew Lownie, thank you very much indeed for joining us once again on the Daily Tea.
Always a pleasure.